Hey everyone, I am delighted to be joined by Mauro from ReedGeek today. Thank you so much for coming over.
Wonderful to be here, Jim. Yeah, and
welcome.
finally see the shop.
Exactly, welcome to the store for the first time ever, I do
Yes,
believe.
and what a wonderful place it is.
Great.
Yeah.
So Mauro later today is going to be doing like a clinic, explaining his products to the people. Hopefully we're going to get a showing of people later today so we can do all that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, we thought it'd be great just to kind of get an overview on your company, the different products you produce, what they do, how they differ from each other, one another. And we've got some exciting little things set up here to go as well, in that we've got some reeds here, some brand new reeds. So I'm going to be demonstrating straight out the pack a select jazz reed, which is my sort of choice of reed. I'll tell you guys how I feel it responds straight out the pack.
Sure.
And then you're going to do your magic, and we're going to see kind of what difference it makes. So, so we'll get onto that later, and we're going to also talk about these Klangbogen products a little bit later.
Yeah,
but
the sax stabilizers.
Yeah.
And what's kind of happening with that? With some of the
Great.
products.
But in the meantime, if you can perhaps just give us an overview of the sort of, as you described it before, kind of the meat and potatoes of your product. So, you know, the ReedGeek devices, as it were. That'd be great.
Well, these are all the ReedGeek's, and I know some people out there might have already seen it or have one and want to learn more about it, but we were the first company to do an all-in-one reed adjusting tool. So, you know, as a player myself, I was always involved in working on reeds and understanding how the reeds work, but I also knew it was a chore for a lot of people. You got knives, you got sandpaper, all these things, and sometimes you would work on a reed and it wouldn't get better or get a little bit better, and then you get frustrated, you didn't know what to do. So I really wanted to design a tool that was an all-in-one tool that you didn't have to sharpen. It was very easy, and the minute you would touch the reed with any area of the ReedGeek, which we'll discuss, the reed will get better, and actually you'll start getting 8 to 10 playable reeds out of the box instead of 5 to 6, or
even fewer.
Yeah, or even fewer. This was our first model. I'll open up. This is the ReedGeek Classic, and if you notice, comes in the cool little ReedGeek tube. Instructions are in there. Our little proprietary ReedGeek bag. And all the ReedGeek's, all our products are 100% US made, just using the most sophisticated machining and alloys. And the premise is that we have a tool that every one of these edges is perfectly true and square. So you're able to actually use it as a scraper to modify your reed, but also to make sure the reed is flat. And a lot of the other methods of sandpaper, files, you know, reed rush, you would go and you would start abrading on the reed, but you would actually never really get it flat. You would actually start pushing the fibers into the reed, you would be biasing, and so what I wanted was a tool that you would actually bring the tool to the reed, and it would actually remove only what it needed to remove in order for the reed to be true. So the ReedGeek Classic is our first model. It's got a cool chromium base to it, and it's a very direct cut, so it's going to remove cane, you know, very quickly. You have all these edges, which we'll demonstrate with Jim in a second. And then the hallmark was the tip of all the ReedGeek's, and we'll get to the other models, has this little curve in here. We call it the pencil eraser. So the premise was, if this was a reed here, that you could go and you could actually erase away what you wanted to remove on the reed, and became something that was very user-friendly. On the Classic, you do have these little bevels in here, and these were to work on, again, if this, instead of opening the pack right now, if this was the rail of the reed, they were working on the bark, some of the bark areas, and for the rail of the reed. From there, we actually developed, which is one of our most popular tools, was the G4. It's a little bit different alloy. It's got this very nice diamond impregnation coat to it, and it has a very smooth glide to the cut. So where the Classic will remove cane quickly, which is great for sax, this is going to be more like shaving with shaving cream. So it has a little finer flow to it, so it's very easy for some of the small reeds or people who are a little bit timid at first to work. Also, the G4 works very well also on some of the synthetic reeds also, but we'll get to that later.
So is this actually a harder material, allowing you to sort of manipulate the reed more easily, shall we say?
Yeah, well, it's not so much it's harder, it's just with the diamond, it's almost a finer edge to it, where so you get a little bit more of a finer scrape, a little finer glide. But with some of the bigger reeds, the Classic is still a very popular tool, because some of the big reeds there's just warping, and you want to remove that cane quickly, so you kind of want to get the job done. With the G4, you also have our radius here. It has slightly different shape for getting into the different areas that we can demonstrate. Plus, we have these curves in here, these bevels. And what these do is give you better control over working on the spine of the reed. So we actually put a contour in this that if you go over the reed, on any reed, it's actually going to help the reed vibrate. It's going to relax that spine so it's not so stuffy on the beginning. So a very great tool. Every edge on the ReedGeek can be used. This also has curve back, so you have some more curved areas to get into some finer places on the reed. And then ultimately for the double geek, we kind of cater the double geek to double reed players, but of course anyone can use it. And it's basically a hybrid of the G4, combining both bevels with a large bevel from the Classic and the G4 with the ability to have interchangeable handles. The premise with ReedGeek is that you don't need a handle. The tool alone can do everything you need. But some of the people who are used to making reeds or using knives like the ability to have a handle just for the leverage. The other great thing about ReedGeek, just as I'm talking about it, is it's pretty much airplane safe. TSA, or is it CAA here? The security at the airport.
I don't.
TSA.
It's TSA.
Oh, it is.
He knows the acronym.
Okay,
Yeah,
it is.
nice one. Yeah.
So it's not a knife, so you're able to travel with the ReedGeeks. They're safe to bring to school. They're not going to cut you. So that's been very good for the younger kids that can actually use ReedGeeks and not only traveling to school, but they're not going to cut themselves. And finally, the newest model in the ReedGeek line is the ReedGeek Bullet. This guy is a true diamond alloy. It's a whole different kind of manufacturing process than these. And again, it works little areas. It's great for double reeds. A lot of oboe players like it, clarinetists, because it's very small and you can get into other areas. You also have a built-in on the handle here, a little shank file. So it's like a little 00 diamond file. So you're able to almost like a perfect little file. You can clean and polish your work a little bit if that's what you like to do, where you used to use it in Rush. But one of the hallmarks of the tool is we design it to be the ultimate to work on synthetic reeds like Leger. So Leger reeds are very hard to make adjustments to the polymer. This does it effortlessly, and we're going to demonstrate that with Jim in the future.
I've got a little question about that. Maybe I'll ask later because I'm gonna sort of pen that question for later. Which is actually no. I'm just gonna say it now because it's in my brain. I'll forget otherwise. But people would assume that a synthetic reed, it comes out perfectly, right? Because that's one of the sort of USPs.
Right.
Buy a synthetic reed for consistency. You don't need to make any adjustments to it. But of course, you're talking about making adjustments to a synthetic reed. So why would that be the case? What are the manufacturers doing such that they are perhaps not consistent from reed to reed, if that's what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not so much that it's the manufacturers. Going back to the incorrect that you have to do less with the synthetic just because the table on most of the major brands of synthetic reeds are fairly flat. Now with the cane reed, cane moves, wood moves. So in the box, from manufacturing to where it's being sent, how long it's being, where it's being stored, the reed tables are going to move, and a minute after you play them, they're going to warp. And so this is almost like a maintenance tool that you need to use. A ReedGeek, this is why we designed the thing to keep the reed true. Most of the time, why reeds aren't playing is that they're either warping after and starting to twist and turn.
This is perfect. This was actually going to be my first question. You've kind of answered it there because I think the number one thing that people want to know and understand is why do we need a ReedGeek in the first place when all these companies claim to be making these perfect reeds. I mean, if you take Dario of late, they've got this wonderful digital technology. And I've been to the factory myself some years back, and it's really impressive. And of course, they would say at their end of things, these reeds are coming out great, maybe 8 or 9 are working out the box and all the rest of it. But they don't say things may change later down the line. And I think you've just answered that. So you're saying to me that they do produce great reeds, and there's nothing wrong with that reed when it goes into the packet at the point of manufacture.
Yeah.
But later on down the line, due to environmental conditions and all sorts, that reed is affected, and that's why we need to bring it back to that point when it was originally manufactured.
Exactly. And the other thing is that you need to voice it for your particular system. So a reed company is basically making you a finished canvas, let's say for your painting, but it's for you to get onto your canvas a little bit and voice it for your style of playing and for your mouthpiece. Right. So that's the reason, again, why you need a ReedGeek, because they're making you a reed that's basically a reed that's in a general idea, but you're now bringing, they don't know how you play, they don't know how you blow, how much air capacity you have. They also don't know about your mouthpiece, your ligature. So what you're doing is you're voicing the reed and the mouthpiece together, because these need to work as a system.
Harmony.
Yeah,
Synergy.
these are like almost like a double reed. Here's one side and here's the other. And the more you can adjust and just tailor your reed for your mouthpiece and for your liking, then you start personalizing your your
setup.
Yeah, your setup. And often with regular cane reeds, you're personalizing it through beating that reed into submission. That just because the way you're blowing, you're actually forcing the behavior to personalize to you, your pressure, and your mouthpiece. But often when you do that, you stress the reed, and that's why reeds aren't lasting that long. So with the ReedGeek, when you personalize it, initially, then the reeds will last a lot longer, and often you can use reeds for months with the ReedGeek. And just to kind of summarize, going back to your question about the synthetics, I know we got off that a little bit. Basically, again, the synthetic is making you a very nice, perfectly machined canvas. But once again, the synthetic has more tensile strength than a piece of cane. So it's going to not want to bend, or it's going to want to deflect less because it's a stronger material. So again, everything you would want to do to personalize, you would want to do again on the synthetic.
The same applies from here to here.
Yeah,
but there's even more strength involved here.
So you're not able to beat it into submission. As much as your cane reed.
Right, that's really interesting. Yeah. Shall we do some practical stuff now? I'll blow a few tones on a reed, and I'm really interested to see your process following me just trying a couple of notes on this initially. So we've got two reeds here. We've got a Select Jazz. This is my preferred choice of reed for alto sax, a 3 soft. So I'll start with this one here, and I'll just play it pretty much dry, just a few notes on the sax, like I would do when you're not around. Yeah. I'll tell you how it feels, and then you can talk to me and weave your magic 100%. Sort of thing. Okay, great. So.
Yeah, so I feel the reed. Yeah, there's some air in there. There's some response issues just happening because the reed is new. It's kind of trying to get used to, bending around the mouthpiece. So I believe this would be a great candidate, of course, for the ReedGeek.
Great, perfect.
So just from there, I'm going to go ahead and just demonstrate with one of our most popular models, a G4, that we like, and it has the other options. But once again, any of the ReedGeeks will achieve this process. So the first thing I'm doing is using any of the flat edges on the ReedGeek. So this is the minute I put it on edge, it's actually finding anything that's out of square. Wow. And this is out of square to maybe a half thickness of a hair on your head. So it's just pulling. So that's all it takes there. We turn it around and then we go all the way off the reed. So you can see it's pulling some out of the middle, that it's already starting to swell, which is, a common thing with a reed. So I'm just kind of going, you can shave like this, but I tend to just kind of shave and then return, shave. I'm almost like pushing a little bit of snow.
But just to interrupt you briefly there, I mean, you do need to make sure you complete the stroke and come off the end. Yes. Otherwise you would have that kind of...
Exactly. And if you can see what we're pulling here, it's such a fine amount of cane, so it's only pulling, half a thousandth of an inch of cane, where on some of the other methods, see, I'm just going off, and I can actually feel the ReedGeek now, just sliding. Now I want you to feel how this is actually sealing the pores with being flat.
Feels super smooth.
Yeah, super smooth, where some people used to try to polish their reed to get, but you're actually polishing something that's imperfect. We're actually creating such a fine polish through actually having something flat. Right. So do you want to, then the next thing I would do is I would go in and start looking at the other part of the reed. Do you want to just try this as just flattening first?
Why don't we move, I mean, we could do, it might end up getting a bit ridiculous. So I think you can move on and show me. I know from past experience with you that you've done that, and immediately I feel that difference. I'm sure it's there, but I think you can move on to the next stage.
And the reason for that difference is you can see right now how it's adhering to the mouthpiece. It's actually sticking.
Right. Okay.
without the ligature. So this is what we want, is a great seal, that we're not just biasing it with the ligature to try to get it to seal. So that tells me that this is flat. The next thing we would do is, as we hold up, and it might be kind of tough in this light, is we're actually trying to find what I consider are the wings. So as it flex on the mouthpiece, reflex on the mouthpiece, and flexes, it's almost like an airplane wing as it's going. So if one side has more resiliency or density, it's a little imbalanced. And that's the whole idea of what a balanced reed is. So with the ReedGeek, it makes it very easy, where I can see here and feel it, that it's a little more density on this left side.
Yeah.
And you can actually see it. So what we can do is we just take the ReedGeek. You can actually use any edge of the Geek and the tool, but with the pencil eraser, you can just go up here and just erase away. And it's the right side here going this way. I was left looking at it, just racing away in these areas just to get that into balance. And so the more we balance these areas in here along the spine, the more we can focus the reed, and the more it gets it to be freer blowing. So you can just get in here and just very effortlessly just kind of here and balance.
So we're always trying to isolate that spine. So
Yes.
you've got that differential between the edges and the spine. I mean, I'm
exactly.
going back to my oboe making.
100%.
In my head, I was thinking, do I mention this in the video? I have to mention it. I used to make reeds endlessly as an oboist.
Yes, I
and I
forgot
tried
that you
to get
were-
I tried to get away from that with the saxophone, but I kind of realized that I do need to be aware.
Yes, because it's all about, so basically what we're trying to do is, when the reed is very thick or very stiff, and you're trying to bend it, when you blow and it doesn't want to bend, the air is going to go out this way. So you're going to get shh in the sound. The more we get that wing to be very flexible and focusing forward, the more we get that centered sound, a little more of that darker taw
It's
sound.
actually coming from that core.
Exactly, coming from the core. So very quickly, it's almost taking longer to talk about, but I can flatten it. I can go ahead and just kind of through my hands or visually try to get a little bit more flexibility in here. And then with the G4, I can actually take that spine and just go right over here. This is putting just a little bit more flexibility into the spine, just like that.
Because you felt when you heard me, there's overall resistance, so just taking the spine down will just help it.
Yeah, and what we're doing is we're just getting that tip to vibrate going. So let's just try that right now. And often, if I was doing this with a player, I might even go in and take a little bit more, but I just want to say, with just the minimal amount of just cleanup voice and work.
What can we do?
Yeah, what could we do in literally 3 minutes? And the great thing about the ReedGeek, again, why the tools are so significant, is you can repeat this process. The tool is the same every time. So every time you touch, it's not changing on you. Yeah.
A lot better, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not perfect yet. In some ways, it almost feels like it's set up for me just to blow it in naturally.
Yes.
Like if I just blew on it for like an hour,
Yeah.
it would just kind of come to the right place for me. But initially, it was like...
Yeah, it was much more focused in the sound. It had a little bit more of the music, and it was starting to just lock in between the ranges. And often when you actually use the ReedGeek and get your reed to seal, you can actually make it feel more resistant and harder because you're not leaking and blowing it open. Sure. So players that keep trying to go to maybe harder reeds can go back to, let's say, a 3, and once it's starting to seal, it's almost like they're getting what they were trying to get in the 3.5. So you're able to kind of, separate what strength you really are trying to play.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Get it true.
Yeah, did you want to do a quick another adjustment on that? Or
you know what, I can imagine, I think if you were to do, unless there's any, you know what, let's do it.
Okay.
Why not? Because this is going very well, and the improvement that I'm feeling already is incredible. So I'd be interested in maybe that next step, if you could do it.
But you said something very, poignant. Like at this point, every time you would play with the ReedGeek, I'll go ahead with the G4, you constantly keep up this back.
Sure.
So right now,
so
this feels okay. It didn't move that much, which was good.
Right, okay.
Often, if you take off a reed, it might actually have moved a lot, but this is pretty good. So you're always keeping this up. And players will ask, if I keep doing this, will the reed get too soft?
Yes.
Actually, no. It doesn't really have anything to do with the strength. The more the reed is sealing, and you're getting actually to the denser cane, which is closer to the bark or the epidermis here, the more solid and stabilized your reed's going to be.
So that additional cane that you've just removed there, this is as a result of it settling down, that
Yeah,
it just more is emerging and it's expanding.
Expanding, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, this has, this is actually a pretty solid piece of cane. So we could go in there and just, again, I'm using the side of the ReedGeek here. I'm just excavating. But like you said, you could have literally maybe played this for a little bit and then made an adjustment.
Sure.
But sometimes you're like, hey, I want to play tonight.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and make it
working immediately.
Yeah. So I'm just going over at that spine contour a little bit. We're just and there's videos, we have diagrams on, the different ranges of where you can work on this reed, but I'm just kind of just feeling it and just kind of clearing up again to that spine. And every time, I'm kind of obsessed with, anytime it's in my hand, I'm always checking flatness, because
it's a beautiful thing when you see that cane coming off, and you know it's only for the right cause, right?
Yeah.
That's great. It's way better already.
Yeah, I mean, that's excellent. So that's kind of taking a reed that was already there, which you might have said, well, I'm not sure, let me try another reed, and we just very quickly voiced it for yourself, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that is incredible. It is like magic to a sax player. Let's just briefly move on now to the adjustments on synthetic.
Sure.
Because you mentioned it earlier.
I think maybe we just maybe end with that.
me.
Yeah. So same process again. The bullet. All the ReedGeeks will work on synthetics, but often on the Ligier, and especially on the double reed, people have wanted to adjust them, and so I wanted to design a tool that actually could adjust in synthetics without ripping their polymer. It's kind of a strangulated polymer, but it's very unique and it's tough to work on. So the first thing I would do on the synthetic is just go over the bottom with the ReedGeek, and I took pretty much nothing. So, right now, great testament to Ligier. This bottom was nice and basically flat, because this is perfectly flat. So I always do that. Occasionally, here and there, it could be a little burr or something. So you're adjusting that. And then again, same sort of thing on the synthetic. Did you want to try this first, or?
Maybe it would make sense.
And this looks like the American cut of the reed.
Yeah, so.
And what I'll do is kind of a recommendation of just maybe 2 points that you could touch your, Ligier reed, just to get a little more response out of it.
Okay, great. Different sound.
Different sound, but actually, fairly nice out of the box. The Ligier, is doing, a great job at their designs and making a reed. So on this American cut, so again, it's more about, you can see the wings here are a little bit stiffer because of just the resiliency of the polymer, and then they put this spine on the front. So what we could do,
See that?
yeah, you can see a little bit of this spine contour in the American cut for their support. So with the bullet, we put this curve in where I can just go once, twice, see how effortlessly on that spine, just to get a little bit more vibration. And then coming into this area in here, I'd use that pencil eraser tip. And what I'm doing, going one direction with the Ligier. You don't go both ways, because we don't want to lift and rip the polymer. So I'm just kind of opening up, getting a little bit more flexibility on that top end, and maybe using just a regular flat cut here on the bullet. I'm just going a flat scrape just to maybe get a little bit more tip vibration. Oops, don't want to do that on that. Okay, so just a very little bit. Another area that you could go, just again, is I actually work almost like a little channel scrape just with that. And what we're doing here is just getting some more vibration happening.
Isolating that spine still, even though you've actually taken the spine down somewhat. Yeah, great.
Yeah, because again, the natural cane, you got these tubes and these open tubes that the vibration, and they want to vibrate through. Sometimes with the synthetic material, you're not getting as much of that vibration all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, so it was just a very small amount, but already that was like, so.
It's there.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. We could talk more about this, I'm sure, maybe make further adjustments, but I think we're good. Do we want to talk about Klangbogans and these tools that we did mention? We would talk about it at the outset. So I think we can
do that now or another segment, or
should we
do another segment?
Yeah, we'll do another
close
segment.
This one off. I can cut there.
Yeah. Okay.
Just sort of close it off somehow.
Right. Okay. So we've just done this,
State
and
that we have the products here for sale.
yeah. Okay. So I'll close off this bit here. Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Well, sorry, I'll pin this on here. Mauro, that has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
it's been a really great overview on all your products. Of course, we carry all of these products here in the store here at SAX. We'll put a link in the description, and we're just so grateful for you coming down and demoing them today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. And once again, Sax.co is a wonderful shop. You got a wonderful staff. Of course, Jim and Jamie here behind the camera. They're here to help. They have such a wonderful selection. The most I've ever seen out of many stores, I think, maybe in the world.
Maybe so.
So
we do our best.
And and just again summarize with the ReedGeek, this is a labor of love. I want readjustment to be fun, and you can see very quickly you can adjust something, voice it to yourself, so you can get on with playing. So it's not about like sitting here and laboring over your reeds.
Exactly. Absolutely love it. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.
Bye bye.
Great.